So, without further ado, Anna, Jane from TfL, take it away.
Well, thanks all. Well, yeah, thanks very much for having us. Um, my name's Anna. I'm an environment manager for TfL within our corporate environment and sustainability team within our SHE directorate. I'll hand over to Jane to introduce yourself as well, Jane.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jane Wright, also TfL, but within a different area of the business to Anna. So I'm within our engineering directorate as part of our fairly new environment sustainability engineering team.
Cool, thanks, Jane. If you want to go on to the first slide. So I'll give a little bit of a background as to what our green vision is. It was a document that we published earlier this year around May time, and it was born out of an internal milestone that we'd set within the business to deliver a supply chain engagement plan for our construction and infrastructure suppliers. So we undertook a piece of work to decide whether this was going to be like an internal strategy or whether it would be an external document that communicates with our supply chain directly. And so that's obviously the avenue that we've gone down with this document. So really excited to have it finally published and out there and using it within the supply chain and within our contracts as well. So our green vision is essentially a document that communicates TfL's green ambitions to our infrastructure and construction suppliers, and then it makes collaborative asks of suppliers as well to support our journey. So it's non-time bound. We've deliberately written it in a way that is forward-looking, it's supplier-facing, and it tells our suppliers what our latest green commitments and ambitions are, what actions TfL are taking to deliver them, and then makes asks of our suppliers to support our journey. So the intention of the document is really to communicate better with our supply chain, tell our supply chain exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve and what our latest ambitions are, and trying to direct them in a direction that supports our journey as much as the supply chains as well. So trying to generate that alignment in terms of green strategy. If we go on to the next slide, please. So a little bit of background as to where TfL has come on our sort of green agenda journey. So we've made a series of commitments over the last few years, sort of starting with our corporate environment plan in 2021, or the journey started long before then, but that was sort of our flagship strategy that sets out what TfL wants to do as an organisation for driving the green agenda. It's based on 5 key themes, and this is essentially what has set the foundations for our further approach to this. We then launched our climate change adaptation plan in 2023, which is a lot more specific around the adaptation theme. We've matured a lot in the last few years across our plans for adaptation, and so this really sets out exactly what it is that we're wanting to do in this space as well. In 2024, we then launched our Green Infrastructure and Biodiversity Plan, again setting out in a bit more detail what it is that we're trying to achieve with regards to GI and biodiversity. And at the back end of 2024, we also set commitments with the CLC's 5 client commitments for carbon, and made commitments with the ICG's concrete carbon commitments as well. We've also set something that's not on this slide, but probably should be, is around our science-based targets that we set at the beginning of 2025. And so that's the first time that we've really had those quantified targets in place, especially for scope 3 emissions. So it's a huge amount of work that's been done over the last few years and a lot of progress that's been made, but especially for our supply chain, we can understand that there's a lot out there, a lot of ambitions, and so we wanted to consolidate this into one place and into one document to make it super clear as to what our priorities are, and what it is specifically that our supply chain can help us deliver. If we go on to the next slide, please. So in terms of who it's for, so again, it's absolutely for our supply chain, and trying to communicate with them. We've set it out and specifically targeted it at infrastructure and construction suppliers. So this obviously includes contractors delivering major construction and maintenance activities, suppliers who might be providing key materials for us, and designers and consultants. So that's our target audience, but a lot of the themes are applicable across the scope of our supply chain as well. We have a hugely vast supply chain covering so many different activities, products, services, beyond just the construction and infrastructure world, that it's really difficult to communicate this in a way that lands across the variety of suppliers that we have, but most of this is targeted at infrastructure and construction, but a lot of it is applicable across the supply chain as well. But it's about picking and choosing what's most relevant. It's also targeted at our own internal colleagues as well. So those who regularly engage with suppliers, we've got a variety of different colleagues engaging with the supply chain in a variety of different ways and different themes. And so this document also enables our internal colleagues to use it as a tool to engage with suppliers, help our internal colleagues to sort of steer those conversations and facilitate those conversations outside of the environment team. So I think that is a notorious challenge that we have across the industry is trying to enable our wider business to be able to lead on environment and sustainability outside of those key sustainability teams. And that's exactly what this document is aiming to do as well. We go on to the next slide, please. So, you might want to click again, and there we go. So in terms of how we want to use it and how we want to use it with our supply chain, definitely around familiarising the content and reading the document, understanding what our ambitions are, and for our suppliers to share it with their wider supply chain as well. For a lot of our contracts, our tier 1 contractors, a lot of that work is delivered, or about 80% of that work is delivered by their own subcontractors. And so it's really essential that our suppliers are sharing it with their own supply chain in those cases as well. And then we want suppliers to engage with us on the themes, foster collaborations, and look at driving improvements and innovations using that document. So, as I say, the Green Vision targets a lot of different themes, and so it's not necessarily about asking our suppliers to be driving developments in all of these areas or pursuing all of the collaborative asks that we've set out. In a lot of cases, and especially for sort of SMEs as well, it's about taking off bite-sized chunks that are manageable and able to drive meaningful improvements as well. If we go on to the next slide, please. So what are the themes and what does it cover? So the themes are very much underpinned by our 5 client commitments for carbon with CLC. And so we've very much steered themes of the document around that. So we've got green procurement, which aligns with our contracting for low carbon commitment by 2027. It sets out what we want to do in terms of incentivising suppliers. We've got zero emission sites by 2035 and zero emission deliveries by 2030. And so we've got 2 chapters specifically on these areas that outline what we'd like our suppliers to do to develop in these areas. The feedback that we've had on these sort of topics so far is that this is work that our supply chain are already doing and already looking at, and so it helps to sort of drive the ambition in their own internal organisations around that. With sustainable materials, we're looking at our decarbonisation roadmaps for decarbonising steel and concrete. So we've set out phased approaches to that for those key materials, but also around circular economy and resource efficiency. And so we've set up what it is that we're trying to do there and what our suppliers can do to support that. We've got a chapter on carbon management and adopting PAS 2080. So TfL has committed to achieving PAS 2080 certification by 2027. And so we've got a huge push internally to work towards that certification piece. But instead of sort of asking our suppliers or an area of our supply chain to achieve that certification as well, we've instead asked for a working knowledge and for alignment with the principles of PAS 2080 to support the wider supply chain in working towards that journey as well. So I'm aware that the likes of National Highways have set that as a requirement. We've taken an alignment approach to sort of support the maturity journey as well. We've also got a chapter on nature to align with our GI and biodiversity plans, and climate change adaptation to align with our climate change adaptation plan as well. So taking the key ambitions from these key documents and translating that into something that's meaningful and understandable for the supply chain. And there's a big focus in those chapters specifically around developing green skills and developing capabilities within organisations to support delivery of these plans. So each theme tends to, or has taken a specific structure around outlining what TfL are currently doing to progress our ambitions, but then it explores what we're looking to do in the future to give our supply chain a forward look ahead as to what direction that we're going in, and what they can expect to see from us and sort of requirements that will start to come through their contracts in these areas. And then, as I say, it makes collaborative asks of suppliers as well. So they're not contractual asks. They're nothing that we're necessarily measuring the supply chain against at the moment, but it's just signalling to them that these are the specific asks that they can look at internally to align with our journey as well. Next slide, please, Jane. So in terms of finding our green vision, I think Jane has popped it in the chat as well, but it is a public document that's available on our TfL websites. And so, yeah, specifically for suppliers looking to find it, this is where we can find it. But yeah, I think we've got a link shared in the chat as well, which is helpful. I'll hand over to Jane.
Cool, thanks, Anna. So yeah, I've not popped the green vision in the oh no, it's already in there, so all good. Great. So just in terms of a couple of reflections on sort of how the green vision has gone down and the kind of practical application and delivery within the business. I think, as Anna said, we've had really positive feedback from particularly contractors on the green vision so far, and the fact that we're communicating not just our position now and the kind of current position, which is often what they see through contracts, but we're indicating where we want to go in future. So that's kind of building on the principles of the 5 client carbon commitments, which do a really good job there. As Anna says, it's become a really good focal point internally, but also externally. So it's kind of really brought a lot of our commitments together and put the focus on action, which is really, really positive. Now this position is in the green vision is in place. We've been translating all of those policies into our latest works information template for our NEC contracts, and most of our construction contracts are NEC. So this should be flowing out into the supply chain as we go forward. In terms of kind of wider enablers within the business, our project delivery office, it's called our capital office within TfL. We've got environment training requirements for all roles. So that includes construction managers, project engineers, and we've also been expanding on the carbon literacy program that you might have heard of before, which is that sort of one-day course all around bringing people up to speed with what climate change is and what you can do around climate in your own organisation. We've kind of taken that model, or colleagues in Anna's team have taken that model and have created an equivalent course for green infrastructure and climate change adaptation, which is getting really great feedback as well. So we're continuing that kind of that base knowledge, that cultural journey within the organisation with training. I kind of mentioned that my team are fairly new in the business. We've been created sort of 2 years ago to kind of lead technically on environment and support sort of Anna's team and the environment office with kind of bringing a technical leaning to environment. So while sort of Anna and her colleagues are looking at, okay, what should the environment policy be, we're now able to support and shore that up with kind of technical input and also both kind of upwards facing in terms of policy development, but also making sure that we have now specific sustainability engineers resourced on our projects, in particular our major projects. So it's kind of a new area for us. We're developing as a team. What do we do as kind of a new engineering function? So super exciting, and it's kind of bringing that additional focus to green and making sure it's seen as a technical discipline, and it's got to be involved in design. It's not just sort of a nice kind of quality check out the other end. We are kind of slowly dismantling our tunnel vision, our carbon tunnel vision, I think, within the business. So lots of focus on carbon. Previously, as you can see through our green vision, we're really trying to balance with nature, an approach to sustainable resources more generally, and climate change adaptation as well is becoming really, really important, particularly within our asset management side of the business. We do have a number of major projects in the pipeline. A couple of them are already in flight, like the Piccadilly line upgrade, for example. We are really treating them as sandpits for a lot of these new policies, ideas and kind of ways of working. So yeah, if sort of our message to the supply chain has sort of been, bear with us, please work with this. We're trying to do the best that we can through the contract. We're not going to get everything perfect. So yeah, really this kind of idea of collaborative asks has been really, really key for us. Of course, there are kind of challenges that we are working through as we kind of roll out the green vision and kind of environment maturity more generally. An interesting kind of point, and I'll be interested in the kind of other clients on the call as well and how they've been finding it, is we've been needing to tighten up the commitment definitions of the Construction Leadership Council commitments. So say, we've got a commitment around we want zero emission sites, zero emission deliveries by 2030. We're really having to get into the detail of, okay, does that mean deliveries, through the doors of sites, what vehicles does that cover? Does that cover rail? Does that cover sort of, we've potentially kind of river delivery? So we're really trying to define that and get to those boundary conditions. So, a bit of the nitty gritty to work through. We have target dates which are now fast approaching, both in terms of our science-based targets and the Construction Leadership Council commitments. So we are kind of starting to butt up against, okay, what's achievable, that kind of question of kind of cost, how quickly we can get things into contracts, in 5 years' time, is all of this going to be as consistent as we would like it to be in terms of zero emission sites and deliveries and the use of low carbon materials. So, but I think that's a good thing. It's really now about kind of getting down to business and making these things happen. So that's a much better conversation to be having rather than what should our commitments even be. But obviously, it's that step to change and maturity, but it's an exciting place to be. Communicating and upskilling, training is one thing, but kind of getting people to have a real mature understanding of what environment means, ideally across all these environment themes. That's really tricky. Me and Anna talk about it all the time, but getting our project engineers on board and project managers on board, that's a real challenge, as I'm sure all of you find as well. But I think not just the kind of people side of things, but the fact that we're kind of trying to run as fast as we can with policy development and process development and project delivery all at the same time. So that's a really kind of challenging position to be in. And so we've got, in TfL, a very diverse portfolio of major projects across highways and rail. And so we've got this very diverse portfolio now overlaid with this, diverse array of maturity and policies that were produced at different times and applied to projects at different times. So the contractual terms that we have on some of our major projects that were let 3 or 4 years ago are now, worlds away from the clauses that we want to put into the next major projects coming down the pipeline. So even balance that variety of maturity across projects sort of contractually is becoming a lot more tricky, and we're having to get through that. So yeah, consistency is, I think, going to be the real kind of key thing over the next couple of years. Within the Capital Office, we're having lots of conversations and we've got lots of measures now about just process compliance, just making sure that projects are doing the basics right, that they are producing their whole life carbon assessments, that they're coming in at the right project stage gates, that they are holding what we call carbon and resource workshops within the business, that the SHE management system is being followed. So, we're driving consistency currently a bit more with a stick, but that's really what we want to try and push in the next couple of years. Just a final 2 points. We're really trying to, get away from carbon tunnel vision, but ultimately where we're thinking that's going to end up having to get to is a really mature, integrated design approach. So really bringing in kind of green assets and grey assets together. And that's going to be really challenging in how we run our technical assurance, how we make sure that our project engineers and our civil engineers are equally comfortable talking about grey asset solutions as they are with green asset solutions. And so, that kind of, is kind of the ambition. So all these, everything that we've got to do around how we get green into the same design conversations as we've got now, that's going to be really, really key for us, and kind of, I think we see our role in the environment sustainability engineering team to really try and drive that. So yeah, we talk about kind of environment as business as usual quite a lot within the Capital Office at TfL, and this is going to be a really big thing for our engineering team over the next kind of 2-3 years, I think, kind of driving consistency and driving this kind of new design approach. And then of course for a lot of us, we're operating in a very challenging project initiation environment. So where either the next project is going to be, what funding it's going to be, we want all of our decisions to be overlaid with, really good environmental benefits or really positive environment outcomes and really good environment controls. But we're seeing, the political environment is often the thing that's making the decisions, as much as we'd like it to be based on kind of environment metrics. So it's something that we're and I'm sure lots of people on the call are grappling with as well. And we're just trying to work our way through as positively as we can in this kind of challenging space. So there we go. That's kind of me and Anna's slides running through our green vision, maybe some of the practical elements of what we're seeing, at least on the TfL side of things. But yeah, really happy to take questions and kind of have a bit of a discussion if that's helpful for the group.